Hello and welcome. My name is Keith Barker and I'm trying something new. I'd love your feedback on it. Every Sunday at 11 o'clock a.m. Pacific time, we have an online quiz. I live stream the quiz, people participate, and we have like 200 or 300 people that usually show up for those. You're welcome to join those. But the new thing for me is I recorded it locally today as well. I just finished editing it, and now you can look at the recording of this quiz in less than a half hour. So the actual quiz and all the Q&A afterwards was like an hour and a half. It was a lot of fun. But for playback, to save you the time, I've edited it. So it's going to be different because the question is going to come up and there's not going to be like a minute or a minute and a half wait before the answer comes up. So the way you could use this, if you want to, is watch the video, and then when you see the question, pause it, and then answer the question in your mind or on paper, and then hit play. The answer will come immediately up. So that's a slight difference, but it should save you a lot of time in scrubbing around and looking for all the questions. So with that, enjoy this quiz that I've just finished editing regarding OSPF and routing in a Cisco environment, and all of this is applicable to the CCNA. Enjoy the quiz. All right, a Kahoot by me, the OG of IT. Welcome, welcome, welcome. IPv4 and Routing, the November 2020 edition. After adding this route, what is the result? Good luck, everybody. Let's talk about what the answer is and why. So after adding this IP route to get to the 1023 network with a 24-bit mask, that's what that means, the next hop is going to be 1024.02, and then this value is the AD, administrative distance. So this is the AD. So that's the AD for OSPF, the AD, and this is the actual metric. So with RIP, it would be a hop count. With OSPF, it would be the cost. With EIGRP, it would be the composite metric. When I wrote this question, I was trying to be tricky with the 66, thinking, oh, they're going to look at 65 and see 66 is worse. So the answer that I put in the quiz is the correct answer. So the correct answer is current routes to 1023 are replaced. Which option would win for a specific route? The question here is, which of these devices, which of these routing protocols has a lower administrative distance? So which option would win for a specific route? And EIGRP, let's jot these out together. If you would chat in for me, what is the default administrative distance for an EIGRP internal route? And I will write that down as soon as I get that in. All right, 90 is correct. Thank you for everybody who put that in. Fantastic. What is the administrative distance default for OSPF internal routes? Fantastic, everybody. I appreciate that. All right, how about a static route with an AD of 115? All right, I'm just going to circle that. You don't need to answer that. So if we have an administrative distance of 115, that's what it would be. And internal BGP, think of internal BGP as not being very believable, if that helps. So what is the administrative distance for internal BGP? It is 200. And then external BGP is 20. If we had all these sources that were adding a route or trying to add a route to our routing table, and they're all the exact same network, the exact same route, the one with the lowest score is going to win, the lowest AD. And so EIGRP with a default administrative distance of 90 is going to make it into the routing table. And here's our next question. And what's the most accurate OSPF network statement if we want to include 1067.83.64? All right, a lot of people on the correct answer doing the math. One of the things that I often do is if I think I know the answer to something, I'll still work it out. It might take just a few moments, and that way I can confirm it. So if we have a mask of /28, which means in the fourth octet, so there's the boundary between the third octet and there's the fourth octet. If you're new to IP addressing and subnetting, there's a whole series called the Subnet Saturdays playlist right here on my channel. It walks you through from the beginners, basics, to getting it all working. So in the fourth octet, /28, we have 128, 64, 32, 16, 8, 4, 2, and 1. Great. And with the /28, it would be, for the mask, there's the 25, 26, 27, 28. Boom. There's our new mask boundary. So network to the left, host bit to the right. There's our block size, which is 16. So if we wanted to say that we don't care about these last 4 bits, one trick, it's kind of a shortcut, but we could take the block size for the subnet of /28 and just -1. So 16 minus 1 would be 15. And that's what we're looking for right here for the wildcard mask. So if you're brand new to OSPF network statements or wildcard masks and that kind of stuff, don't sweat it. Don't sweat it. There's several things that went into that, but that is the correct answer, and that's one quick way of getting there. The block size, -1 for that octet, would be the wildcard mask for that octet. All right. Great job, everybody. And we have Glowing Crab on top with 3,559 points. Thanks for everybody who's showing up. We've got about 250 people in the live stream and approximately, I would say about my other screen's down, but I think maybe 150 or so people in the live game. So thanks for being here. Here's question 4 of 7. It's multiple select, at least 2 correct answers, and it's double points. Based on this output, which answers are true? 90 seconds on the clock. Just confirm. So one of the things that I've discovered in my world of working with Cisco and networking devices, including Juniper and others that over the years, is that there's a lot of output here, right? So one of the first things that people think is like, oh, there's so much output. Well, let's just go for what we, let's break it down one byte at a time. And one way of doing that is saying, okay, great. So this is show IP, let me get my mouse out, show IP OSPF regarding this interface. So we're just narrowing the world's focus from everything on that router to just this interface regarding OSPF. And it shows the IP address that we're currently using, which is associated with area 0. And I was chatting with Jose this morning, and we were confirming if we want a neighborship to happen that's functional, what do we need to have match? We need to have the area. So if router 1, well, let's see here, if this is router 3 and the other router is router 4 based on this router ID, they both need to agree that this network is in area 0, and they also need to agree on the network. So if this router thinks it's 1034.0 and the other router thinks it's 1035.0 or different mask length, that's not going to fly. The timers have to match, which is really important. So here we have hello timers. If they don't match, it's over. They also have to agree, and this is for CCNA, we'll just say they do. They have to agree on the network type. And Ethernet, by default, is going to be an OSPF network type of broadcast. So if one says, oh, I'm point-to-point or point-to-multipoint, and the other says I'm broadcast or non-broadcast, one of those devices thinks I need a designated router, and the other device thinks I don't need a designated router. And as a result, they will never successfully neighbor up for functional OSPF sharing of information. So area, network, timers, network type, and if we're using authentication, that would also need to match. But there's no authentication on this interface. I didn't configure any. All right, so what this is telling us is that this router, or router 3, its state is a DR, a designated router. It's got the default priority. If there was a competition, 2 routers came up at the same time, and there hadn't been a DR elected yet, they'd have that election, and the one with the highest priority number, like 5 beats 3, so forth, the one with the highest priority would win. And if there's no priority, if they're both at the same priority, the tiebreaker would then be the device that has the highest router ID would win. And that's, again, if they're both brought up at the same time. But once the DR is selected and then another device is added to the network, it's not preemptive. We're not going to kick the DR off the network and say, yeah, I've got a better priority. I've got a better router ID. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They're going to stay. It's not OSPF does not preempt. So this is saying that the designated router is 3333, which is kind of weird because, it's like this router saying, I'm it. The designated router is 3333, and that's my router ID, which was selected based on manual. You go to router configuration, say router ID, specify what it is. And if it isn't done manually, it's the highest IP address on any loopback interface. And if you don't have any loopback interfaces, the third choice would be the highest IP address on any other interfaces. And that's the pecking order. And that's definitely CCNA territory on how does this router ID get assigned. All right, so then we go down here, and I'm the designated router. There's the backup designated router at the router ID of 4444, whose address is 1034.04. And down here it says neighbor count is 1, and my full adjacency count is 1. So I've got one neighbor, and I'm fully adjacent with them. And it says I'm adjacent with 4444, who, by the way, is the backup. I mean, how many times did it say there's a backup designated router? Like here and here. So basically, just tear through the output and focus for what is needed. And that'll help a boatload. You don't have to interpret every line. In fact, truth be told, let me clear that off. Most of the time, if there's an output like this that has tons of details, I'm never even caring about most of the output, like show interface, gig 0/5 switch port. And there's just tons and tons of details on everything going on a layer 2 switch. I don't care. I don't care about 98% of that output. What I'm doing, looking for specific information from it. And that's really helpful with troubleshooting too. It's like, oh, how do I verify something? If you know the show command, you can go to the details you want, and that's going to help you in the real world, not just for answering a question, but being aware of a show command that you could do. And then based on that output, what does that mean? What does that reflect? Like, what is a late collision? Why is that there? Why do error counts go up? Stuff like that. It's going to help you in the real world in troubleshooting. All right, so great job. Actually, I'm preaching to the choir because most of you nailed that. So let's continue on. Top of the stack, glowing crab. Nice. And followed by soaring new, mountain mouse, quick hawk, and eager sea lion. Or whatever sound the sea lion makes. Fantastic. Question 5 of 7. We're almost done here. Multiple select and double points. No pressure. Based on the output, though, which IP interfaces are included in OSPF? And I will point out that the focal point for this would be these network statements right here. If you are new to me, my name is Keith Barker. My full-time gig is at CBT Nuggets. I'm a full-time trainer there. That's what I do for my career, my livelihood, everything else. And I spend about a few hours every week on YouTube to help people with their CCNAs. That's what we're doing right now, both in Discord and here is helping to reinforce concepts and so forth. So I would recommend studying for CCNA. You need 3 basic things as I practice with camera 2. Thank you for helping me with that. 3 basic things. Number 1, I would recommend some good book. Wendell Odom or Todd Lamley both make great books. You can go to Amazon.com and just look at the reviews, see what people are saying. Those are great resources. So a good book, digital or physical, doesn't matter to me, but you may have a preference. So get a good book. Secondly, I would recommend some additional video training content. And there's lots of stuff on the internet. Now, my content here has a lot of CCNA stuff in it, but it's not complete. It's not like taking the blueprint and starting off with section 1.1.1 and going through everything in detail. I focus on maybe like 70%, 80% of the blueprint on topics I think people are having the most challenges with, and that's where I focus most of my time. So it's the CCNA playlist is like almost 150 videos. Some of them are, 40 minutes to an hour. Some are shorter. But if you're studying something, check out my channel, go to the CCNA playlist and just look for that topic, spanning tree, port security, dynamic ARP inspection, routing, OSPF, whatever it is, NAT. And just go to that section. And I've also got about 30 packet tracer labs for you to practice with. Okay, so a book, some formal training material. So I prefer video, and there's a lot of great companies out there. CBT is definitely one of them. There's first 7 days are free or something to that effect at CBT Nuggets. It's a great resource. If you get it, it's pricier than free because it costs money, but it's a great resource. But there's a lot of great resources out there. I know a lot of the trainers personally who make that content, and frankly, there's not a terrible one that I know out there. So if you have somebody that has a lot of following and a lot of people are saying, yeah, it's great, it probably is. And then third would be 2 initials, PT, not as in physical therapy, but as in Packet Tracer, which is free. And you can get Packet Tracer by downloading it. You go to netacad.com. It's a Cisco Academy for NetAcad, and sign up for a free account, download Packet Tracer, and then use it. And so I have like 30 labs at thekeithbarker.com with walkthroughs for most of those, and you can just do hands-on practice, and that's going to give you a reinforcement of the concept. So it won't be just like, how do switches forward frames? How do routers? How does OSPF work? How does this work? You can actually lab it up for free. So you don't need a rack of gear like simulated gear like I have over here outside. I have a 6-foot pile, literally, of gear that I haven't turned on in a few months because I can do it virtually a little bit more quietly. So that's it. A book, Todd Lamley or Wendell Odom, great resources. Secondly, some official video course. That's my preference. That'll walk you through some from soup to dessert. My preference again would be CBT Nuggets if you can afford it. But if you can't afford it, there are other options out there, including a lot of free stuff on the internet that you can find. And then third would be Packet Tracer. All right. So in answer to your question, I think it was from Dominic. Those are the resources I would suggest for CCNA studies. Oh, and also, subscribe if you haven't to this channel for additional resources, and I'm happy to help. Okay, so for this question, this is a subnetting question, which I probably don't want to elaborate on right now, but you have to figure out, okay, based on, let me show media, based on this network statement of 162.18.16 with this wildcard mask, then figure out which IP addresses fall into that range, and the answer is these 2 right here. And so it does involve a little bit of work to get there, but it's worth it. So most of your questions in CCNA, they're not going to be taking hours to do or even many minutes, but a question like this, it would take a few minutes to sort that out. So go see me in the Subnet Saturdays to get the details on subnetting, and then you can apply that knowledge to here. And I work through that also in the Subnet Saturdays course. So I think I'll optimize our time together. All right, let's take a look at the leaderboard. We are almost near the end. Okay, smart Stork has taken the lead with 9,263 points. Way to go. Hey, and if you're here, thanks for spending the time with me. This is worth it. It's worth it. It's a little bit of work to actually learn these techniques, but once you learn them, they are a great foundation as you proceed in your career. So get the knowledge, get the certification, get some hands-on and real-world experience, get an entry-level job, and then just keep on climbing. Get CCNP or some other vendor, and just keep on going. That's the secret. After 30 years of being in the IT industry, since 1985, 1986-ish, when I started, the secret is keep on moving, my brother or sister. Keep on moving. All right, 2 more questions. This is 6 of 7. Oh, and I still have my camera on. Sorry. Hold on. Where am I? There I am. All right, here's the right button. Here's your question. Question 6 of 7. You have 2 routers on this network segment. We're using /24 networks. And based on the output, which answers are true? Okay, wow, that's pretty good answers. We have a lot of people on blue. That's awesome. And let's just take a quick look at the output. Again, the strategy might be, let's just focus on, actually what would help me out here, if I was doing this exam or this question or one like it, I would probably either, they give you a little scratch, a little paint. If you're taking the exam online, they give you a little clipboard paint program you can use. Or if you're taking it at a facility, they usually give you a laminated piece of paper. But I'd probably say, let me draw this out. And I could do something like this. We're on router 2. So this is router 2. And it's got some interfaces. I see at least three neighbors here. It says 2 routers per segment. So I've got something here, something here, something here. And this is there's /24. So this is the 10.23.0 network and the 10.12.0 network and the 10.24.0 network, all with 24-bit masks. So I would visually say, okay, great. I've got 3 segments. And on this one, 1023 right here, and I'll just use all the same color. But this does, I have a full adjacency, and this says that we're not doing a DR or BDR. Dash means we're not doing a DR or BDR, which means we're either a point to multi-point or point to point, and which don't use DRs. So in that case, I would say this network type for OSPF is point to anything. I'll put an asterisk. Point to point or point to multi-point. It's point to something because it doesn't have any neighborship there. All right, and it's full. Then I'd say, okay, that's that network done. And I'd say for the full DR on 10.12, which is up here, I've got a router out here of 1.1.1.1. It shows me that that's the router ID for this guy who's hanging off that network. And it says full DR. So I have a full adjacency, and it says that that guy is a DR. Well, if that guy's a DR, and I haven't done anything weird with my priority here, that means I'm going to be the BDR on that network segment if there's only 2 routers per segment. So that would, I think that'd be true, yeah. And then, so that handles that one, and let's take a look at the third one. 4444 off the 10.24 network. So here we have this router with a router ID of 4444. Wonderful news. And it says that that guy is a BDR, and there's only 2 routers per segment. So if he's the BDR, I must have won the election for the designated router, says R1. Oh, R2, dang. Thank you for the feedback. So this is the router we're looking at in the center of this whole massive thing. So R2 is saying, I must be the DR because that guy's the BDR. And if we did a show IP OSPF interface for that interface, it would show us that he is the DR. So let's take a look at the answers here. 4444 is a BDR. That'd be this guy right here. And that is true based on what we just looked at. And R2 is a BDR. Oh, that's tricky. This is tricky because R2 is a BDR right here on this segment, but not on the other segments. So it is a BDR for the 10.12 network right here. And let's see, R2 is a DR. Oh, wait a sec. Oh, yeah, and that's true too. I was saying that's true. It's a DR on this segment. So that is a correct answer as well. So correct. And then 3333 is a DR. And because it's using a point to something because of this guy is not a DR or a BDR because there's no DR or BDR on that segment. All right. So hopefully that helps a little bit. That's always fun to discuss. OSPF is interesting, and the more you practice with it, the better you'll get at it. We are running a lot of OSPF, a lot of it. And once we get past CCNA, which is just single area OSPF, at the professional level, we'll get into multi-area OSPF and how that works and additional LSA types and so forth. But the basics and fundamentals of OSPF are great, and you're just going to build on that as you continue. So OSPF is important. And I think we have at the top of the stack here, Red Lion with 13,742 points. If you're new to the game, by the way, the more questions you get correct, the more points you get. And the faster you answer them correctly, the more points you get. So the negative side of that is that if you answer a question incorrectly, you get no points. And you just have to say, oh, bummer. So I'm glad you're here. I appreciate your participation. And here's our last question of the quiz. OSPF default information originate has just been added to this router. What's going to happen? Oh no! OSPF default information originate has just been added. What are the results? The default route is not being advertised. What? That's like, what do they call that thing? They call that bait and switch, where they say one thing and then another thing happens. How is that possible? Let's talk about that for a minute. So here's the basics. And I was talking with a few people this morning in Discord, and it's really important to understand the basics of how something works. And then if you understand how it works, then it's a lot easier to start practicing and working with it. So let's imagine that I'm a router and I've got my connections to my networks. In fact, if I put an IP address on an interface, boom, that goes to my routing table. A directly connected network goes to my routing table, and I know about those networks. Now, the problem is a router all by itself can't reach anything except it's like a house with driveways. I know how to get to all the streets that my driveways connect to, but that's it. So we run a routing protocol like OSPF that can have our other routers inform us about other networks. We could also use static routes, but most of the time we're going to use dynamic routing protocols. So if I have 2 or 3 neighbors on those streets and I'm running OSPF, they're also advertising information regarding OSPF about the network, and I can take all that information and I can say, oh, to get this network that's 4 or 5 routers away, I can forward it to this router or that router or the other router. So when it comes to the command default information originate, here's what it means to me as a router. Okay, I know about what I know in my routing table. If I get the command in router OSPF 1 or whatever process ID you're using, press enter, and I use the command default information originate. Here's what it says. It says, Keith, if you have a default route right now in your routing table, advertise it via OSPF. Tell everybody. So I'll send LSAs out that indicate, hey, I have a default route. And then that LSA, that link state advertisement, think of a link state advertisement like a little piece of information that gets forwarded to every router in that same OSPF area. So if you have 20 routers, they'd all hear about it. So default information originate says to me, if I have that configured, take that information that you know about. I know how to get to a default route and let everybody know. Share the good news. It's like, hey, I just won the lottery. Yay, I know how to get to anywhere. Well, what if I don't have a default route? That's what this question is about. If I'm a router and I don't have a default route at all, no statically configured default route, no learn default route, nothing. If I get the command default information originate enter, that says, Keith, only advertise the default route if you have one. I mean, I wouldn't want to go around saying, I won the lottery. It's party at my house. Come on over. After the health crisis has, been done. Come on over. I won the lottery. I wouldn't want to say that unless I really had won the lottery. And think of the default route for this router as having won the lottery. He has a default route and he's going to advertise it. The trick is default-information originate only says advertise the default route to all your OSPF neighbors if you have one. And if I don't have a default route, I should not be telling all my buddies in OSPF land that I have a default route. So default-information originate says advertise the default route if you have one. But if I don't have one, no advertisement. So to solve that, you can also add on, I don't think Packet Tracer supports this option, but you can also add on a keyword always. And so if somebody came to me and said, hey, router OSPF 1, process ID 1, enter, default-information originate always. That says always advertise the default route, whether I have one or not. And that's how the default information originate command works. So default information originate says advertise the default route if you have one, but if you don't, shut the heck up. Don't talk about a default route if you don't have it. Don't advertise it. But the always keyword, if you add it, which is an additional option of adding it, that says advertise it, even if you don't have it. So the negative thing of that is if I'm a router and I don't have a default route and I have the command default information originate always, if I tell the world, all my OSPF buddies, you and me, and everyone, I tell everybody that I have a default route, they might send packets my way. So if a packet comes to me, is forwarded because they think I have the default route, what am I going to do? I might have to drop it. So just be aware that advertise, like the Top Gun statement, son, your ego's writing checks your body can't cash. If I advertise the default route and I don't have one, packets will be forwarded to me if they need it. They need to route and they don't have a better route in the routing table. I get those packets. I might have to drop a few because if I don't really have a default route. All right, so that's my story about default routes. Okay, so the answer to this is the default route is not being advertised, and that is because, look at this, we don't have one. If we had a default route, it would show up. It would show up show up in the routing table of 0000, and it'd also say gateway of last resort, and it would show the details for that default route. But because we don't have one, we're not advertising one. So the default route is not being advertised, which is what 25 of you said. All right. Fantastic work, everybody. Let's do this. I'm going to encourage all of you who feel inclined, if you got value out of this quiz today, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up so other people will know it's worthy of their time. Also, if you haven't yet subscribed, please do that as well. And let's take a look at the podium. The winners, please. A moment of music. All right, Red Lion on top. 6 out of 7 correct. All right, Marco, it's good to have you back in the world of networking as well. I love it. I almost retired of networking in 2009. That's another story for another day, but I almost said I'm going to do something completely different, and I'm glad I stayed. All right, also, these are the toughest questions. Question 5, 7, and 2, and 6. And overall, as a group, we got 27% of these questions correct. So a little room for opportunity for growth there. I would also love to get your feedback. So if you could take a moment right now and provide me a little bit of feedback with the app, if you're logged on to the app, and that would be really helpful as well. And let me do this. Let me move a camera over. There's my cue. And let me go to this camera. And let me take some questions. If you need a bolt, we do this quiz every Sunday Pacific time, 11 a.m. We'd love to have you if you can join us for that. And we also do the Keith Barker Office Hour on Discord. It's free. And that's every Saturday at 10 a.m. So make sure I spoke that correctly. 11 a.m. on Sundays is this quiz, Pacific time, and 10 a.m. Pacific time on Saturdays is the Keith Barker Office Hour on Discord. Feel free to join. All that is free. Okay, let me see if there's any questions in the queue real quick. And then also, after we're done here, I'm going to jump onto the CCNA voice room on my Discord server if you want to hang out for a few minutes. All right, what does my t-shirt say? Let's see here what it says. Science, because figuring stuff out is better than making stuff up, or something to that effect. I have 7 children, and I encourage those kids to, and anybody really, to use critical thinking in all the things they do. And a lot of times we'll make stuff up. You know, humans, we've been around for a long, long time, and we have stories. We love stories. Don't we love a good story? And sometimes we have stories for how things work when we didn't understand how things, like before we understood viruses or other, medical issues, we had different explanations for what happens. So a scientific methodology is really what I want my kids to have. Critical thinking, something comes up, what are the probable causes of this? What do you think happened, or why did it cause it? Do some research, get a couple verified sources, and that way we're not tossed back and forth by anything that might not be too literally correct. So that's it. I'm interested in your feedback. Let me know in the comments below if you enjoy the edited version. If you do, I will be more than happy to continue doing that to make it more efficient time-wise for you to go through these quizzes in your final preps for the CCNA. All right, so have a great day. I look forward to seeing you in the next live event. On Saturdays at 10 a.m., I have the office hour on my Discord server. It is free. I also have these quizzes live. If you want to participate live on any of the quizzes, they are Sundays at 11 o'clock a.m. Pacific time for the quizzes on Sundays. So I look forward to seeing you in the next video or the next live event, and I wish you the best of success in your studies on whatever technology you're currently pursuing. Until then, be well, have fun, and be nice to everybody. Bye for now.
I'm out of reasons, I'm out of rhyme, but I'll only tell you that I'm out of time. I'm sick of love songs, I'm tired of this, and I wanna tell you straight, just